So I want to talk about a call I had recently with some people in the venture capital community. So, really kind of hardcore investing in, tech companies, primarily US based, but actually there were some people who I think were maybe in London as well. But anyway, there was a Q&A, there was a Q&A period, and they were talking about how, you know, answering the question of what would you advise a new graduate who wants to get into venture capital? And they literally said, you know what, honestly, just lean into your weird, just lean into your weirdness. Because the conventional route or this conventional idea of, okay, I want to go into finance, so therefore I'll get my MBA, and then I will, of course, get the right internship, and then I will get into venture, particularly for the tech industry, get into venture that way. They were like, at this point, honestly, study the humanities, go into creative writing. And they were saying how they kind of ended up in venture capital in this really haphazard way that was not the clear linear path, like whatsoever for them. And actually, that talk was interesting. And the reason I was even in the talk, or why it really piqued my interest, is because they were discussing how they're using AI in their venture capital firms and how all these different AI tools are really now very helpful for them who are, kind of new fund directors, and they're kind of starting up their own VC firms, and how back in the past you would need to hire a bigger team to start up a venture capital firm. And now, with all the different tools that are there in AI, including ones that within their own industry they're building out, that's not necessary anymore. So now AI has created a way for them for new fund managers to create new venture capital firms in a very more accelerated way, and with a very lean team, not requiring lots of people, lots of analysts and staff and MBA interns, right? So how they ended up in venture capital, it sounded like they didn't really go the conventional route that had a lot of gatekeeping happening. Now they're saying that, look, if you have an investment thesis, if you have a certain idea of certain industries or tools or technology that you want to invest in, or certain demographics that you want to invest in, you can, if you've got the right contacts, you can start up a fund much easier now and much leaner now with AI tools that are out. So you don't necessarily have to have the Wharton MBA, or the background in finance, or the particular investment experience, checking all the boxes, and having had gone through, the right internships with the right people, the right organizations, institutions, to be able to be in venture capital anymore. That's why asking that question of, hey, what do you advise a new graduate who wants to get into this field, maybe they have a finance background, would you advise them? For them to respond, get into the humanities, lean into your weirdness. Oh, things are changing. Things have definitely changed because, again, back in the day, there was a playbook. I would say pre 2022 for that industry, there was absolutely a playbook for getting into venture capital. And it was very clear to see how to go about it. You could talk to, an advisor at school, at your university, or they put you maybe in touch with some alumni who would give you the play-by-play, the playbook they used, the trajectory that they were on, or it was just very much through contacts, or maybe you were an operator in a tech startup that was successful, and then this was your next play after leaving the startup. So now, though, it's AI has a way of democratizing a lot of these different opportunities that for a really long time were super, super gate kept. And now you're finding people who are advising in these industries, holding Q&As and panels and speaking about it, and they don't have a clear-cut way for you to get into the industry anymore because they themselves are, talking about the AI tools that are helping them kind of, they're like, the AI tools are now performing a like an intern or an analyst or an associate at the associate level. So, or even kind of like a co-founder of a fund, because there's just so much knowledge already out there about, setting up these things, and so much advice that has been put out there on the interwebs for a long time. I mean, this is the one thing about venture capital that's really interesting, is because it's it's very prevalent in the tech and innovation space. And I think that because it's so tech forward, they were always more amenable to discussing things online, posting things online, sharing online about their industry. So there is just a ton of information, like really, really great advice that's been put out there over the last generation or so about the venture capital industry, about that sector. So now it's being made very clear that if you want to be an intern in um, certain particular financial sectors, there's no game plan for you anymore. Like you're scrappy, you're adaptive, you figure it out, right? And it's okay now to not be the Wharton graduate or the Harvard Business School, Stanford Business School graduate. I'm not saying it doesn't help. Networks are, I think, always going to still be pretty important, but it's not as critical as it once was. In particular, the knowledge you're gaining from those institutions and from those degrees in finance and business are not as critical to entering a finance sector as it used to be. Why? Because of AI. Genuinely. Like it's making things much more accessible. So the question to you is, what playbook have I been following to a T that maybe I just am now realizing I'm hitting a wall with this? I'm really not, I'm not really getting the results I want, no matter how much I'm efforting, no matter how much I've ticked every box. Have you really thought about doing things the unconventional way? You want to get into finance? Well, someone just advised you to go into the humanities. You want to be cookie cutter finance guy, 6'5" blue eyes, and do everything the right way with the Patagonia vest? Well, someone just told you that lean into your weirdness. Okay? There's nothing weird about the Patagonia army. I mean, lean into the thing that makes you stand out is basically what they're advising now. So, if you want to think more about that, and maybe not necessarily in the context of venture capital or in finance, but just this idea of, I have been following a blueprint that's been, tried and true for I don't know how long, and I'm not seeing results. I'm hitting a wall, whether it's for you, your child that you're advising, whatever the case, you're thinking of your next play. You're thinking of how you can incorporate or finally be you, right? Like finally be the weird person, finally be let your humanities knowledge and experience and expertise, your education in the humanities, finally, you want to finally lead with that. Maybe you want to show up differently. My coaching appointments are open. My coaching calendar is open, and I'm more than glad to talk to you about that. I am at the front row seat of a lot of what is happening in terms of these changes, and I'm looking across markets. I look at EU, US, uh, Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, particularly East Africa, with experience also in the UK market, particularly London. So let me know in the comments if this is something that resonates with you, this idea that the old blueprint is gone to hell and you got to rewrite a new one, and you're kind of really ready to own who you are. You're all creative sides of you, a different side of you. You're ready to show up differently to finally get the results that you want in different areas of your life.